In today's lesson, we're going to look at balancing chemical equations using algebraic methods. So this method is a little bit easier for me personally because I can just use mathematics to calculate the different coefficients that need to go in front of each of the chemicals. So we're going to go have a look at this chemical reaction here. So sodium chloride bonding with fluorine, and then giving me sodium fluoride and chlorine gas. So what I do is on top of each of the parts, I go and write an A, B, and then obviously over the arrow I'm going to put an equals, then I've got a C plus a D. Then the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to go and write down all of the elements that I have in this equation. Next, I'm going to go have a look at sodium. So I've got sodium under A, but there's only one of them. So I'm just going to write A. Then I go have a look for the next place I see A, and it's here by C. And there's only one sodium over there. Then I go look at chlorine. The first time I see chlorine is in A. There's only one of them. And then I see chlorine again by D, but this time there are two of them. Then fluorine, I've got 2 by B, and then I've got 1 by C. So my next step then is to go and write all the different letters, so A, B, C, and D. And I have to pick one that I want to make one so that I can go and sub back in. So I always go for the one that's got the highest coefficient and with the least amount of variables. So in this case, I can either go with D or I can go with B. I'm going to make D equal to 1. So because I've selected D to be equal to 1, I can go to this formula over here. And in D's place, I can go sub in 1. Which means with algebra, the A value is then going to be equal to 2. Right? Now that I said that A is equal to 2, I've got another equation. I've got this one over here, where I said A is equal to C. Right? But A is now equal to 2, which means that C is also equal to 2. Right? Then the only one I still need is B, so we can go to this equation over here. So 2B is equal to C, and we just established that C is equal to 2. So 2B is equal to 2, meaning B is equal to 1 if I divide that 2 away. Right, so in terms of coefficients, I have the following. My A value is 2, my B value is 1, my C value is 2, and my D value is 1. And there it's balanced. I'm going to do one more with you, just so that you can see the gist of it. It is something that you're going to want to go over a couple of times just to make sure that you completely understand. But like I said, for me, this method is a lot easier. Let's do one that's a little bit more difficult. Right, so once again I'm going to go and I'm going to write down A at the top there, B over there, C, D, and E. Then in my next step I'm going to go write down all of the elements that I have. So how do I know if something's an element or if something's a compound? If something is a capital letter, so here we've got a capital H, we've got a capital C and a small l, meaning capitals show us where elements are. When there's a small letter, that means it's part of the previous letter. So that means that one's chlorine. Here again I've got a capital and a small letter, meaning calcium goes together. Here's a capital and there's another capital, which means they have to go on their own, making it carbon and oxygen. Right, now I'm going to go write down everywhere I see hydrogen. And I see that I've got one hydrogen. Let me just quickly erase that so that it's not too busy. I have one hydrogen here in A. Oh my goodness. Where's my peach color? There we go. I've got one hydrogen in A. And then I've got 2 hydrogens in D. Then I go to chlorine. I've got 1 chlorine in A. And I've got 2 chlorines in C. My calcium there's 1 in B, and then there's 1 in C. My carbon, we've got 1 in B, and then we've got 1 in E. Next up, we've got oxygen. We've got 3 oxygen in B, we've got 1 in D, and we've got 2 in E. All right, my next step is going to be to go write down all of my letters. So A, B, C, and D. I have to pick one that I want to make 1. Now remember the rules. We're going to take one with the highest coefficient with the least amount of variables. So I'm not going to use this one. I know B has got the highest coefficient over there, but because there's 3 variables, I'm not going to be able to solve that algebraically as of yet. So I'm going to again make D1 because it's got a 2 in front. So let's make D1. Then we go back to this equation over here, and we're going to say A is equal to 2 times 1, meaning A is equal to 2. Right. Then we go to this equation over here, where I said that A is equal to 2C. We just established that A is equal to 2, meaning that C is equal to 1. Then, oh, I forgot my E there. We said over here that B is equal to C. Well, C we got is equal to 1, meaning B is also 1. And then finally over here, we said B is equal to E, meaning E is also equal to 1, meaning the only one that's going to get a number in front of it is going to be HCl. Right, I think let's do one more together. The first thing I'm going to do is write down on top of them the following. Now I'm going to go write down all of the elements that I have. Okay, let's go look at hydrogens. I've got 2 hydrogens in A, then I've got 1 in C, then my sulfur, I've got 1 in A, and I've got 1 in D, you can see over there. Then my oxygen, I've got 4 in A, plus 2 in B, and then I've got 2 again in C, and 4 in D. Alright, so there I've gone and written down where I found everything. Now I'm going to go write down my letters of the alphabet, and I have to pick one that I want to make 1. So once again, 1 with a high coefficient. Let's switch things up a little bit and make A equal to 1 in this case, because there's a 2 in front of the A, which means he has a higher coefficient. So I'm going to write it like that, meaning my C is going to be equal to 2. My A value is equal to D, meaning D is equal to 1. And B is equal to 2D. So that will be 2 times 1, meaning that will be equal to 2. So there is this one balanced. What makes these difficult is when you want to balance all the oxygens, especially if there are a lot of oxygens like in this one. It's going to take you a long time to balance the left-hand side with the right-hand side. Where I find the algebraic method is a lot easier in keeping track of what's going on. I do have to show you guys what happens when you end up with a fraction, because it does happen. We sometimes end up with a fraction, but it's not the end of the world. I'll quickly show you what we do. So if you end up with a fraction, it means that you didn't have the highest coefficient as equal to 1. So let's say, for interest's sake, I make C as equal to 1. Okay, so I'm going to look over here. I said C is equal to 1, meaning B is also equal to 1. All right, we're all together over there. Then I'm going to go to this one over here and say 2A is equal to 1, because we said that C is equal to 1. Now when I divide that 2 away, I'm left with a half. Now I don't want a half. I want full numbers. So I'm always going to multiply it with whatever's at the bottom to get rid of the fact that it's a fraction, meaning my a is actually going to be equal to 1. But because I did that, I have to go and multiply all the ones that I've already done with the number that I had to multiply a with, meaning b is actually 2 and c is actually 2. And then I can go and get d normally by saying a is equal to d.